Welcome, welcome, welcome back to Truth Quests. My name is Aaron Moriarty. I will be your host, and we're going to go on a quest for truth together. And today, friends, we've got someone here for you, Wendy Lou. Wendy, welcome to the Truth Quest.
Thank you very much. I'm excited to be here.
Well, that's great. And so now, you are a very interesting person. You've been in the military, right? You've had
Yes.
experiences from a very young age. You're also a creator alchemist at Intuitive Oil Blends and a vocalist. You're like, this gal has it all.
I've done a little bit of everything. Yeah, I dabbled in everything. I think it was all these past lives coming through going, try this now, try this now, try that now.
Well, yeah, we're raised to think, okay, fix your sights on one thing and go for it. But there's so many different paths to explore.
I never resonated with figure out what you want to do for the rest of your life and do it. I never resonated with that. I was always kind of on a 5 to 7 year chunks of the journey. So yeah.
Oh, that's cool. So where would you like to start with your story? What is present on your mind right now?
Goodness. Well, I did take some notes because this is actually the first time in this, sort of forum that I've talked about a lot of this stuff. I primarily am out there. My name is out there for energy work. I do past life regression, healing and that kind of thing. And so these whole experiences I have not spoken about them in quite a while and never in a kind of an official format. So I was a little nervous. So I took some notes. And the way I ordered my notes was just kind of chronological. So I could just start from the youngest age of what I experienced. And then we can kind of go from there if you want.
Sure. Yeah. So you're like 3 or something, right?
Well, and even before that, so I have memories, and I actually speak about this. I teach about parenting starseed children in 5D. And I actually speak about this, how it's very common for starseeds to have memories from infancy, very, very young infancy, where they say we aren't forming memories yet. And I have memories of being in my crib and looking up at the mobile and wondering why I can't move my body, right? Like I remember being confused that I could not manipulate my body. And then I have a memory that my mom confirmed for me. I have a very specific memory of being on an airplane with my older brother. And I even explained to her what he was doing. That was back in the day, when you could go up and meet the pilot and take little kids into the cockpit. And my brother went up and got the little plastic wings, pin and came back. And she said, you could not possibly remember that. And I said, well, it's clear as day in my head. I was a month old. Wow. I was 4 weeks old and I remember it exactly. And so these kinds of things seem to be common, not across the board, but seem to be very common for people who came, those of us who came volunteering to be here versus actually coming for the experience of this ascension, right? Because we've already ascended our souls. And so we came back to help. And so I feel like that's a very common thing. And then so I have those memories, several of them. And then at 3 or 4, and this is actually a memory that has in the last 5 years or so has resurfaced. When I was 3 or 4, I had visions of a beautiful woman in the middle of the night. She would come to me in the middle of the night and I just knew and I knew it wasn't a vision and not a dream because when it ended, I had to go back downstairs and climb back in bed. But I would find myself on the landing of our house, looking up the stairs, and this beautiful woman was just floating there. She was literally floating, and she was wrapped in this kind of billowy, pale blue fabric. And I was raised Catholic. And I think the reason that it was blue was to give me the message of who it was. And so I realized later that it was Mother Mary. They always depicted her in that pale blue, which is very disempowering, but at the same time, it gave me that information that I needed to know because being raised Catholic, you only ever see her in that baby blue. And so later I figured out who it was. She came to me several times. She never spoke, but for me anyway, I had in my childhood, my mother was a very young mother and was not a very present, like we kind of were on our own a lot. And she suffered from depression and she was pregnant a lot and she just was this young kind of baby having babies and couldn't, at the time just didn't know how to handle it. And so I feel like the energy that I got from Mother Mary at the time was this very maternal love that I felt like I was missing at the time. And so she kind of filled in that hole for me. And then a little bit later, so she came to me around that same time. Several times I would see her. She never spoke. And like I said, I think I just realized who it was a couple of years ago. And that has been very magical for me. So she's a very strong guide for me, even now. But then I took a shaman course, just trying a little bit of everything. Like you said, I'll just try anything if it sounds intriguing. And so I was in this shaman course and I had a session with the teacher, who's a beautiful, beautiful shaman here in Pueblo, Colorado. And she helped me recover a memory of an imaginary friend that I had, which I had many. I was a very odd child, like a lot of us, people who resonate with the term starseed or light worker. I had many imaginary friends, now knowing that none of them were imaginary, right? Most likely, probably about 50-50 alien and ghost, because I communicate with both. And so, but what I recovered was this memory of an imaginary friend that I felt very safe with. He was a protector for me. And he was a very, very taller than my dad. And my dad is 6'3". So he was much taller than my dad. And he was a tall blue man. And this memory came after I had discovered, to back up just a little bit, I discovered part of my awakening was David Wilcock, discovering David Wilcock. And I saw him on Ancient Aliens and just felt like I knew him. You know how we have those connections sometimes, like I know this guy, like, do I know him from somewhere? And he just was so cute and endearing. And he had the kind of that Playboy haircut for a while, he had that longer hair for a while, and he was adorable. And he was just so smart. And he was kind of like this really kind of sexy, nerdy, smart guy. And I was like, I like this guy. And so what I decided finally to do is like, okay, I want more alien stuff, because I knew that I was in that world somehow. And I chose him to read his books. And I thought, oh, I'm going to read about aliens. To come to find out, his books are not about aliens at all. They're about the source field, and they're about the energy, and they're about the illusion of this reality and everything. And so that completely cracked me wide open. And so I found him on Gaia. I actually ended up meeting him. I've met him twice now, which has been just a joy. And I found him on Gaia and just started binge watching his wisdom teachings. Could not get enough of the wisdom teachings. I was hungry for it. And I was still in that very fearful state of awakening, where I was coming to the realization that the world was not what I thought it was. Our government really doesn't love us. They really are trying to kill us and keep us sick. They really, are trying to kill us through food and vaccines and medications, including our children. They target our children, all about public schools, and so I was in that fear still. And so I discovered, and then they started doing cosmic disclosure. I believe I was kind of waking, in that awakening period when they first started the show. And so I was really excited about that. And so I had already seen, Corey show the pictures of Ratier Air and share his story when that memory resurfaced. And so I was telling myself, oh, you're making this up, stop being ridiculous. But every time I shared it with two people. You're the third. And so with the two times that I would try to tell, the first time I could not even speak it because I had this intense anxiety attack when I tried to tell her what I saw. And then I was able to tell another friend who was guiding me, became a teacher for me for a while. And she said, look, if you were making this up, why on earth would you be having such a visceral reaction to trying to, to share it? And so that stuck with me. Like every time I think, oh, I'm making it up. And, we have that, we call it imposter syndrome throughout this whole journey. Oh, I'm not really speaking to ghosts. You're being ridiculous, Wendy. Like plug back into the matrix. And so, I had a memory resurface of him walking me through the woods behind my house. I lived in rural Minnesota. I grew up in rural Minnesota. And he was walking, I was 4, I believe, by this time. And he was holding my hand, and I felt, like I said, he was a protector for me. I felt very safe with him. And I know now it was because I came in, and I'm not the only one. I'm not saying I'm this magical being, more magical than anybody else, but so many of us, we come in and our light is so bright that we immediately become targets for the darkness. And so I believe he protected me from that. But there was this memory that resurfaced that was a very pivotal memory. It was the last time I saw him. And he was holding my hand and we were walking through the woods. And there was something else there. And I've not pinpointed what, like, I kind of felt like maybe it was the Mother Mary energy, but there's someone else there that I've not been able to figure out who was. But anyway, we were walking through the woods and I remembered noticing that he was sad, because I could, we can feel, empaths, we can feel other people's emotions. And I asked him why he was sad. And he said, well, I have to do something that I don't really want to do, but it's for your own safety. And I said, and he never spoke. It was all telepathic. I think I spoke out loud, but then he would respond telepathically. And so I said, well, what do you have to do? And then right at that moment, we stopped and he looked deeper into the woods and there was a small spacecraft. I would say it was the size of like a little utility shed. It was really little. And I knew then, and then that's where the memory ends. And so what I've kind of pieced together since then is I had to be essentially put back to sleep because it was too dangerous for me to stay awake because I was so bright. And I was not going to ever let anybody dim that, right? And so they had to put me back to sleep to get me to this point. And so, and again, I'm not like, this is not from ego at all. I've not shared this with hardly anybody. Because, I was telling myself for a long time, oh, you are not special. Like, who do you think you are? But this is what happened to me. And so I do believe that little ship had a couple, crew in it or a couple of people in it who did whatever they needed to do to put me back to sleep, to kind of shut me down for a while. And then I started recovering memory. So then from from that time to about 12 years old, I have very, very few memories, like a handful from all those years of childhood, very few. And the ones that I have are really kind of foggy and disjointed and they don't make any sense. And like literally I have many where the memory comes to me like I am walking in a fog in the memory. It's very odd. And so I just learning about all this stuff. And I live in Colorado where Gaia TV is, right? It's in Boulder. And I actually, as a writer, I actually applied to write for them because I was so engrossed in this world. I just wanted to be part of it. And so I applied to be a writer for them and I was invited up to a dinner and that's where I met David for the first time. And I met these twins, these lovely older ladies, identical twins at this conference. And I had just like 2 days earlier, Rick realized that I'd been abducted many times as a child. And they both walked up to me. I'd never met these women before. And oddly, we kept kind of finding each other throughout the evening because it was a lot of movement. We were in an auditorium, then we were in a basement, then we were in a hallway. And I was always like right near them. And they both said, well, we feel like we should meet you because you keep showing up like right behind us or everywhere we are. And then one of them, they were kind of scrutinizing me. You know how people who you feel like are just these natural, wise people, right? They were scrutinizing me, like reading my energy, and it was making me very nervous. And then one of them says, you were abducted as a child, right? And I had just come to this a few days before. And so just realizing that the memory, or just being aware of that, right? Awareness is everything. The memories have kind of started to come back. And what I've gotten so far is that for the most part, from 7 to 12, I was taken by my imaginary friend, which it's just the easiest way to say it because I don't know what his name was, but I was taken by him he was checking on me, making sure I was okay, making sure I wasn't too shut down, making sure everything was going okay. And so that's the message that I've gotten so far. I don't have any, they say that the grays or they'll come in after you're taken by the good guys to see what they did. Have you ever heard that? I think Corey talks about that when he would be taken, then immediately they would be right on the heels to try and figure out what was done to him. And so I think that's happened a few times, but they've never, like, I don't have any memories of trauma, of being abused, of being tortured, anything like that. So, but then at 12, for whatever reason, it stopped. I think there's that, that prepubescent, kind of phase in life. Maybe they just needed to leave me alone for a little while and let me develop. And then I was totally plugged into the matrix for about 25 years. And I was in the military. A lot of people ask me, oh, so that's your story. You were in the military and you saw stuff. I didn't experience, to my recollection, I didn't experience anything in the military. However, I am married to a military pilot who has seen things that he, cannot really talk about.
Can you go a description on the things he can't talk about?
No, because I haven't even been told, because he's one of those annoying people who takes that order seriously and has not even told me. So, but he
Well,
has had some experiences in the airplane.
okay.
So, but yeah, not me personally. I never did. I was in for about a decade, and I was that office worker. I was a glorified office manager. I did work for colonels and generals and such, but I never was privy to anything that I know of.
Now,
And so, go
is he
ahead.
in the Navy or
Air Force. We were both Air Force.
Air Force? Okay, because I think Navy pilots have been given permission to talk about anything they see.
Yes.
Maybe the Air
Yeah.
Force pilots, it's a no go.
No, and I honestly think he feels like his experiences were pretty benign. Like it was kind of like, did I really just see that? And so he's kind of talked himself out of it, that he ever saw anything, I think is kind of what's happening, which,
That
they do that.
sadly that does happen. The one witness I had with one of my two for sure UFO encounters refuses to speak about it.
Oh, goodness. Yeah.
Many years ago already. So
Yeah. And the memories do fade, especially when you tell yourself that it didn't really happen.
well, we got
You can,
pictures. We got pictures of it, so we
oh,
know what happened.
goodness.
But
Wow.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's,
Yeah, no, and I even, my dad was a Marine, so I even grew, he was air traffic control, so I even grew up on bases.
wow.
And to my knowledge, I don't have any. Now, of course, that would have been the time frame where I was being abducted, which is interesting, when we lived on military bases.
Interesting.
So yeah, so it's interesting. Oh, and I know we talked about this before, because I do want to touch on this, because when Corey started talking about in Cosmic Disclosure, he started talking about my lab and how he was taken as a child, and that kind of gave me a reaction as well. And so I decided I needed to dive into that. But I kept asking I had just learned kind of how to communicate with my guides and tune into my intuition, and channel that kind of thing. And I kept asking, was I taken? Was I part of this program? And I kept getting no, 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 no. But then they showed me a memory. So I was chosen in second or third grade, super young, right? Like 6 or 7 years old. I was already a very accomplished writer. I'd already written several stories at that age, taught myself how to read and write before I started school,
Wow.
and was writing stories. So I was chosen, I want to say it was third grade. I was chosen to be part of this. They were doing this little journalism club. So they said, right? And I was one of the youngest kids that they chose for this journalism club. And I remember being taken out of class, and they said I was going to be interviewed. And I went into a room, and I have no memory of the interview. And
Wow.
all of a sudden I was back in my classroom. Now that journalism club did end up being real, interestingly, but I think I think what the information that I get from, trying to channel from my guides, is that I was on the list, I was looked at, I was interviewed, and they did not choose me for whatever reason. Thank God, right? Like that is definitely something to be grateful for after hearing about Corey's experiences. But I have always been incredibly empathic. So I know that that didn't surprise me, but I have no memory of what happened in that room. So it was very interesting.
So have you done like hypnotic regression?
Not really, no. What I do now as a practitioner is I do past life healing, but there's that modality out there called QHHT and BQH. Those are more hypnotic, mild. They put you in a mild hypnotic state. Akashic records is really just channeling. And so it's not, I don't consider it, really hypnotic. Although I don't know, at what point does it shift from in a deep meditative state to hypnotic? You know what I mean? So I do go into a pretty deep meditative state to channel this information, but I've never intentionally, done any hypnosis or anything.
So you sort of tune into the Akashic records. Am I hearing you
Mhm.
right? So
Yeah, and I live there. Like I've been told already. I was told I always wanted to be a librarian. Obviously, I'm a writer and I'm a voracious reader. And yeah, so I was told before I even knew what the Akashic records were, somebody told me that my guides told her that I'm a guardian of the Akashic library. And I remember like bursting into tears. I didn't know what it meant, but I was like, I heard library and guardian and I was all in.
that's cool.
So I was like, yes, that's exactly what I want to be.
That's really cool. Now, do you visualize the Akashic records? Does it look like something? Because I had
Yeah,
an experience.
Oh, okay. Well, it can look different, like for, it can look different for everybody. And as an example, my teacher, who we are very aligned, in our journeys, she sees a very high tech, almost like the Matrix, right? Where they're in that white room and then they can create things and things just appear. It's more like a computer program. Whereas I see like a Harry Potter giant mansion type ancient library with the big lions out front and the giant steps. And that's just what I've always seen. And then I, ask to come in. Well, I used to ask to come in. Now I don't need to do that because I can just blip in there now, right? Because I live there.
Wow.
And so I would ask to come in, and the very first in the class, which is amazing. If anybody is interested in learning Akashic Records, find a course because it really is a beautiful modality, especially if you're a natural storyteller like me. It's just, I think I found my jam as far as modalities for the time being anyway. But I would ask, to come in, and when we did an exercise in the class where we went in and she said, you have a guide. Everybody has like an assigned guide in the Akashic library, and find your guide. And my guide is Merlin. And so Merlin is always in there waiting for me, ready with the book that I need, our book of souls, people's books. I've seen books this big, and I've seen books, 3 feet, tall, depending on how many lives their particular soul has lived. And so, yeah, it's not even a matter of, like, I used to do this whole process and this prayer to get in, and now I'm just there and the information comes very easily. So it's definitely something that I was meant to do right now.
So when you get the book, I mean, do you have to physically read it, or you can just hold it and kind of get the essence of what's in there?
I don't even need to hold it. What happens is Merlin will set it on this dusty old table, right? I always visualize him like dropping it, on this old table, and dust flies and spiders are screaming. I totally get this Harry Potter vibe because I imagine it as an ancient place. And so that's what came for me, for the visual for me. But like I said, it could be, if other people visualize other things, that's perfect for them. It really is, because it is everything, right? It's not any one thing. It's going to be whatever resonates with you, whatever helps you heal. But I don't even necessarily have to hold the book. Merlin sets it down for me. He opens it, and the stories just come out. It's almost like the pictures, the movie comes out. I've never even actually visualized myself laying a hand on it. I've never had to. It just completely comes to me in pictures.
Interesting. So, I don't know what it was that I saw, whether it was the Akashic Records or what it was, but I was out of my body in the 83, 84. I was listening to a radio show, and this guy was describing astral projection, how to do it. And you sit with your hands like this, and you relax your body, and you sit up without sitting up. And I was a round ball. I could see in all directions. And when I got to a certain height, all of a sudden it felt like I knew almost everything. And then there was this gray stream of knowledge, this gray, almost like a blood vessel or something.
Yeah.
And I could
That's
mentally
kind of how I see timelines, interestingly. So yeah, keep going.
mentally pick anything out of that stream. So I picked out a little white flower, and a little white flower came to me. Here I'm floating, I'm going up, I can see in all directions, crystal clear vision. And the flower kind of distilled down to its basic elements. And I had the re-knowing of, oh yeah, that's why a flower is designed that way. Like it just, like a re-know.
Perfection.
So it was very, very
remembering. Yeah.
curious.
I can tell you, so I hope it's okay, because this is my whole life. This is my brain. Other people's guides talk to me, whether I want them to or not. Other people's guides are always talking to me. I could be walking through the mall, they're telling me who's getting divorced, who's got cancer, who just lost a parent, who I know everything as they're walking by. And I've learned to discern, I've learned to focus and, kind of clear away anything. I always have to prepare myself when I go into where there are a lot of people. But I will tell you what, your guides, your higher self is awesome, by the way. Badass. Your guides immediately were telling me you bypassed the library. So what the library is it's just our earthly lives. So if you lived lives off planet, then there's another library they're all connected, right? But you shot right past the libraries and reconnected with source during that time. That's what they were showing me, is they're like, oh yeah, he was way up there.
Well,
So yeah, that is really cool. I mean, that's quite an experience.
it was very strange, and I also looked on my body, and I knew that most of my memories and experiences were in that body, in that mind, but I felt free to be out of it. I didn't have any connection to it. I didn't care about it.
Wow.
And that's when I
Yeah.
noticed, I realized I'd lived many, many, many lives, and none of those were registering either. I was just happy to be out. And
Observing. Yeah.
when I went halfway through or partway through the ceiling, I could see the darkness and my body below. I that frightened me, and I zoomed back into my chest. I came out of my belly,
Right.
zoomed back into my chest with a thump, and my whole body was pins and needles. So I think I was returning to source, because I had to like rub my arms and legs to
Yeah,
get.
yeah, yeah. It's hard to come back in when you've
Yeah.
experienced that bliss. And when you said it looked like a vein, and I said, that's how I see timelines. I do feel like you kind of plucked something out of the future, like your future, where you're going. And when you're done with all the lives here on Earth, that state that you'll be in, where you'll be in gratitude for all that experience and knowledge, but no connection anymore, and ready to move on to the next adventure. So yeah, very cool.
Yeah, it was, and at the time, I was not spiritual at all. I was
Isn't that always the way? Isn't that funny?
I was an evolutionary, a scientific evolutionist. So I just thought, you're born, you live, you die. Be a good person, leave a good memory. You
Right?
know, uh, but that, and I tried for years to dismiss that. And
Sure.
I'm just imagining, like you said, I'm probably just
Yeah.
imagined it. There's no possible way that could be true. And so I would sit for many years, for hours, trying to imagine, trying to duplicate being a round ball and seeing all directions. I couldn't put it
Right.
together. It was too much information
Yeah.
to imagine. So I had to just, well, I guess there is something after. Well, that's a nice consolation.
Sure. Yeah. Nice, nice. I mean, I do feel like it gave you something, right? It definitely, planted a seed, or, gave you some sort of codes or something. We like to use those crazy words, but yeah, you definitely. It's interesting because the more, like, I've astral projected by accident, and like you said, the minute you realize what you're doing, you get afraid and you come back in. I try to intentionally, and I've never been able to do it. But I've got a very busy, and maybe you're the same, but my mental energy body likes to be in charge, and
Mhm,
so my brain is always going.
mhm.
And when you have that, when you're in that state, having a spiritual experience is a little harder. You have to really get yourself out of that monkey mind, as they say, and get into your heart and get into your soul. And so
Right.
yeah, it's hard for those of us who are very, like, I was an evolutionist for a long time as well. I'm a very academic person. I believe in proof in book. I don't believe in proof on the internet. I believe in proof in a book, in an actual book that was written 100 years ago, 200 years ago. That's the kind of proof I look for. So yeah, so obviously libraries is definitely where I belong. Of course, even those are all more computer banks now than there are books, but
And thank goodness for the internet, because boy, the card catalog
sure.
is so limiting. You know,
Well, that's true. Yeah. Yeah.
there'd be subject matter to look
The
up.
Dewey Decimal System, baby. That's to date us. Remember that old gem?
Yeah, the Dewey.
Oh my goodness. I miss it. It was so easy to find a book. Now I have no idea. I get on the computer, I'm like, what?
Yeah. Um, yeah, it's amazing what the internet has done. I mean,
True. Absolutely.
it's remarkable. I mean,
It really is. I mean, it doesn't make any sense if you think about it, the way we leapt into this technology from, it was almost like cavemen all of a sudden building spaceships, and it doesn't make any sense. And so you have to, the only explanation is, that this technology is coming from elsewhere, that, we're being given gifts to keep us on this timeline, to keep
yeah,
us on this highest timeline.
yes, or the timeline they want us to be on, or trying to get us there.
Sure, which, at some point you have to kind of just let go of control of that, right? I always tell people, I'm like, a lot of this is happening above our pay grade, and you just have to let it go.
Mhm.
So just be, like you were saying earlier, just be a good person
Yeah.
and do the best you can. Yeah.
Leave a good memory. Oh, that guy or that girl was really a nice person.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
That that's that was always my thing. But now I know there's something after. But the other thing I realized when I was out of my body and I kind of knew everything, I thought, oh, I could go to Jupiter, I could go to the moon, the sun, because you don't have any feelings. You can go right to the
Right. You're not going to burn up because you're nothing.
right. But as soon as I realized I could do that, I remembered I'd already done all that, and it's boring. It's it's
Yeah.
boring to know
Right.
everything.
It's like window shopping and never
So
buying anything.
you can never discover anything. So we need to like appreciate our ability to discover things because when when we know everything, there's no discovery.
True. So we have
Oh,
to appreciate the forgetting. You
yeah,
know, we agreed to
the
forget coming
re-knowing.
into this, and we get so frustrated about it. Why can't I just remember what I came here to do? Well, that wouldn't be, where's the excitement in that? That wouldn't be
Right.
exciting at all. So I have a friend, I have a beautiful, beautiful soul brother who's a young British man. And he always says, he's wonderful because whenever I get into a downward spiral, oh, I don't know if I can do this, but this is what's happening to me and I can't believe it. And he'll go, how exciting. And I have to repeat it, so because he's like, get out of that spiral right now, because this is all about, and he's the first one to say it too. And I say it all the time now, this is all about the adventure.
Mhm,
We chose to come here for the adventure. So
mhm.
not just helping humanity, which is a beautiful thing to do, but we could do that all as Tibetan monks sitting in a cave for 30 years and attaining rainbow body. We could raise the vibration high enough, right? If we all
Yeah,
just did that. But
sure.
no, we wanted to come and have an adventure.
Yeah, it's much funner to smile. I mean, you can raise the vibration of somebody just by smiling or
Absolutely.
telling a joke or saying something funny or
Right.
um, I think what the little things, and they say it all the time, the little things are really the big things.
Can be huge. I like to personally, I let my kids always get embarrassed, but I like to tell strangers that they look nice, or I like their hair, or I like their top, or their
Yeah.
shoes, or something like that. And I think there's a reason that I'm pulled to do that, because I can feel maybe that they're not well, that they're in a funk or a deep pit or something. And just that, and as a total stranger, what more could I do without being
Mhm.
weird, right? Without it being
Right.
creepy,
Yeah.
but that it just helps just enough, right, to keep them out of that pit. And so yeah, I urge everybody, if you ever feel compelled, and I've been compelled so many times and not done it because I feel, oh no, that's weird.
Right.
Don't tell her that, that's weird. Do it because you never know what they're going through.
Do it. Yes. And I like to try to make everyone smile. I mean, even at the grocery store or you go someplace.
Right.
I don't wear a mask because sometimes I'm the only one, but I'm smiling. I try to smile when I'm shopping because people people aren't getting that now. They're not getting smiles, and
Right. No, you can't see anything. And now, we're really not gonna be able to see anything with the double and triple mask ridiculousness. They're trying to, and that just, I'm like, are you waking up yet, people? Like, come on, wait till they say full hazmat suit just to go to the store.
well,
We'll see.
that's why I invented the Invisimask.
There you go. I've thought, okay, seriously, I'm gonna tell people I purchased an Invisimask from Aaron Moriarty, and I'm
You,
wearing it currently.
you
It's
don't have to
amazing, isn't it?
purchase. Yeah, I've teleported them to
Oh,
everyone. Right.
awesome.
And
Yay.
when I heard the 2 and 3, I teleported them. So now you have
Wonderful. I'll wear as many Invisimasks as I need to.
they're self-cleaning too.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Never
Oh,
need to,
that's wonderful.
and they don't pull your ears at all.
Can I get Spotify in in my mask?
We're working
Okay,
on
cool.
that. We're working
That
on
would be great. That would be great.
we're working on that.
Perfect.
So tell me about you're a creator alchemist and you have a company called Intuitive Oil Blends. Is this correct?
Yes. Yep, that is absolutely correct. So one of my first gateways into the awakening was physical health. And I have four boys, and my now 20-year-old, when he was born, he was sick from the time he was born for like the first 8 years of his life. And he got to the point where he was on 2 inhalers and a couple different pills, and they were telling us he was going to be severe asthmatic. He would never be able to be an athlete, all this jazz. And I discovered essential oils. We also discovered chiropractic care, which, if people don't realize, that is huge. If you have any respiratory, if you have a kid with respiratory issues, take them to the chiropractor, because that was huge for him. That saved his life. Because when I started taking him, he's 20, he's strong as an ox. He played sports after that for years. He is healthy. He has on no medication. He is not asthmatic, because I stopped the medication and started to take control of his health with chiropractic care, with food, with nutrition. We were not eating well, and with essential oils, and I'd never heard of them. And interestingly, it was when he was 10 then. So we started the chiropractic care and the change in the diet right away, and that helped, and stopped the medicine, and that helped. Of course, I was told, don't do that, that'll kill him. He didn't get any worse, even. He only got better when I stopped. And so, not that I'm recommending anybody do that. Please don't do that and say, well, Wendy said, but that was what was in my heart at the time. And I'm very grateful that I had the courage to do that, because that's exactly what he needed. And so I had a friend, I was complaining because I had my fourth then was born. My first and third are incredibly healthy kids. My fourth then came along and started down the same road. And I was really kind of beside myself with emotion about it, because I'm like, I'm not going down this road again. And we'd been taking him to the chiropractor, and we'd been doing, right away, which we'd never done with the older one. And he still was kind of dealing with a cough, and he was just a couple months old. And so I had a friend hand me a bottle of lavender. And I was like, I don't even know what this is. I'd never heard of essential oils. And she said, put a couple drops on a stuffed animal and put it in the crib with him. And I'm not kidding you, night one, it kicked out the cough. He didn't cough once. And I was like, what is this magical elixir that I have never heard of before? And so I started in. All 4 of the rest of us, or 5 of the rest of us, were on allergy medication. So for 2 years, all I did was lavender. I didn't even use anything else, because that world, if people know, if you think about that whole world and learning oils, it is overwhelming. It's just like any kind of rabbit hole. There's so much there that it's hard to grasp it all. And so you really have to start slow. And so, but for 2 years, all I did was lavender. And after that 2 years, all of us were off allergy medication with just lavender alone. And what we would do, first of all, I only recommend pure therapeutic grade, just FYI, that's my disclaimer. Do not put Walmart's brand oil in your mouth. Just don't do it. It has to be food grade, which therapeutic grade is another term for that, right? So it has to be the good stuff. But we would take it, and anytime I would feel allergy symptoms coming, I would wipe it inside my mouth, and I would do it forever. Everybody was doing it. And within 2 years, we were all off allergy medication. And so that really kind of opened, I was like, I want to learn more. And so I just started to dive into, that's kind of how I work. I just started to dive into everything I could get my hands on about it. And before I knew it, I was like, telling people, oh, well, you have this issue. I was one of those knowing people, you should really try peppermint oil for your headaches or whatever, unsolicited advice. We all go through those phases. I think when we're learning something exciting, we want everybody to know about it. But now here, 10 years later, or even a couple years ago, 8 years later, I found myself kind of playing around with making my own blends. And then when I started opening up to my intuition and that whole world and the energy healing, I was like, well, I could intuit, right? Like blends that people need for certain areas. And I'm developing kind of a medical intuitiveness. I have been able to, in sessions before, say, your kidneys are working a little harder than usual or whatever. And of course that comes through emotion too. Like I also know that we store fear in our kidneys. And so if I'm feeling a lot of fear, I'm drawn to the kidneys a lot of times, not every time, but that kind of can be a gauge. And so I'll say, well, let me make a blend for you. And I was giving them away. I was just making blends for people. And so I was having all these people coming to me, well, I have varicose veins. Could you make them? Yeah, because I make one for my husband and my mother-in-law. It's hereditary for them. And so they use this vein blend that I created that really helps. It doesn't completely get rid of them, but it makes a huge difference. And so I had a friend, that British friend I told you about, who's always keeping me out of the spiral. He was visiting and he said, and I made him 2 blends, and he said, why are you not selling these? And I was like, I don't know. And so he happens to be a web page builder. In 4 days, he built me a website. And I have a business now for the intuitive oil blends. And my favorite, so I have a ton out there that are like for, for anxiety, for sleep, I have a kids line. But my favorite one is the custom one where, I don't even need to know what you're going through because I do an energy reading. And I don't even need, to be present with you. I can tune into your energy. Energy's right here, right? Energy's here, no matter what you need to see. And so I tune into your energy. I do a full reading that I videotape. And a lot of times I use oracle cards because they're fun, and crystals. I'll do crystal grids sometimes too, but I'll tune in and do a full reading. And then I make an intuitive blend and mail it to you. And that's my favorite product that I have out there.
Wow.
So I love oils. Absolutely love oils.
It's tuned right to the person. That's really interesting.
Absolutely. Yeah. For that time period, right? Like in a couple months, they may need a different frequency, but
now,
yeah.
I have a very limited knowledge of oils. I've used, I like sprinkling the lemongrass around to make things smell better. I think, isn't it peppermint or spearmint that gets rid of spiders?
Peppermint, supposedly. I will tell you that I have not had that same experience. I know everybody says that, but we have lived in two places now with a lot of black widows, and they like to, camp in the window wells, right? For if you have a basement in your house. And, my one son, he'd have like 8 nests in his window well, and I would no kidding, saturate them with cotton balls with peppermint and set them out there, and they would build their nest around it. So I don't know if black widows are immune or what, but
Wow.
I thought that was kind of interesting. So I'm like, why does everybody say peppermint? I'm not saying don't try it. I know a lot of people say that it works, but I'm thinking maybe black widows or it could just be what I did learn, and what I finally told him was that, if there's an animal that you just keep seeing being pulled to, because it was always in his window, nobody else's. I said, this is a strong spirit guide for you, the black widow. And he's like, but I'm terrified of them. I said, exactly, because they're always in your energy trying to tell you something. And that is bringing fear of them because you don't understand what's going on. But I said, so I tried to teach him to tune into that and, try to see what they were telling him.
I've tried so many things with spiders. You try capturing them, putting them outside. You feel good.
Yeah, we try to do that as much as we can.
And then one time I killed one on my wall in my bedroom. It was a pretty big one.
Yeah.
I didn't clean it up. It was just, I left it there for whatever reason, thinking, hey, that's like warning his friends, like, danger zone. You better not come in here.
Tell your friends. This is not a safe place to be.
I don't know if it's just my, partly my, putting things off, but finding reasons to put them off.
Procrastination.
But hey, I was going to join a procrastination club, but I think I'm going to wait a little while.
Yeah.
Might rush into it,
I'm still waiting to get information from the guy who runs it, right?
So now what I do also remember is that lavender makes you sleepy, right?
So what oils do? Now, here's the thing. Lavender, if it's a pure therapeutic grade oil, if it is a food grade, the good stuff. And there are so many companies popping up now with the good oils. It's not just Young Living and doTERRA anymore, guys. Branch out.
Really?
Branch out. There are companies out there that are not MLMs, that you can actually just buy an oil and not fill out all the paperwork and be an indentured servant.
That's like Scamway, right?
Yeah, very much. I know that it's a business model that works, but I see it as it's the reason they have to charge so much is to pay all these people when you can get the same oils for so much cheaper.
Right.
And so it makes no sense to me. But yeah, there's so many companies out there now, but it's what they do, the good oils, if you get the good stuff, what they do is they raise the frequency of your body and will give your body whatever it needs that it's lacking. And so lavender can actually wake you up if that's what your body is needing. And so I always tell people, and I probably shouldn't spread this around, but to be honest with you, it does not matter what oil you use ever. You could close your eyes and grab one every day and use it all day long, and it's going to give you what you need, because the standard frequency of the body is in the 60s. I want to say 60 something. The lavender is like 100. Every oil is going to be higher than that. So it does not matter what oil you grab. Yes, there are ones that tend to kind of marry up with certain organs, that kind of thing. But if all you're looking for is a rise in frequency, which is going to help you heal, right? Because it's going to give your body the information it needs to heal itself. Grab anything, as long as it's a really good therapeutic grade oil. It does not matter what it is. And if you like something, stick with that. If you like the smell of something.
So now, do you use like an atomizer? I know they have these things that put it in the air so you're breathing it,
The diffuser.
diffuser.
Yeah, I have about 7 of them around my house. We
Oh,
run
so
them
those work.
at least at night, we run them while people are sleeping. I really like them because, and I like the ones that require water as well, because we live in the desert. And
Oh,
so it's also humidifying the air a little bit, while people are sleeping.
yeah.
And so it's nice because my kids, my older, we've got the older or the oldest, was in college trying to work as an EMT, working his way through college. And when everything shut down, he couldn't afford to live on his own. So he's back with us, and he's past that age where he'll let me, I at night, I take my younger two and I put oils on them. We do like a blend that I have made on the bottoms of their feet every night, just for overall maintenance, health, whatever. Well, my older two are, adults and don't really let me do that anymore. So if I can run diffusers, then I know at least I'm getting it in them that way. And
Yeah.
so I've got them all over my house. Yeah.
that-
They don't really like me yanking up their shirt anymore and rolling something up and down their spine. I don't know why, Aaron. It's
yeah, I
really
wonder
odd.
why. I wonder why they would
Yeah.
close that.
Adult men.
Yeah. Now, I heard, and I don't know if this is true, but isn't essence of rose oil is like very expensive. And as
Yes.
I understand it, it takes like what, 1,000 roses to make like one drop or something like this?
It's not, I don't think it's that drastic, but it is something ridiculous. It's like 40 roses or whatever to make a drop or something like that. It is very rose oil, the good stuff. Again, whenever I talk about oils, it's always the good stuff. Rose oil is the highest frequency essential oil ever made.
It's like the
It is,
gold of oils.
it is absolutely. And there's a special way to make it. There are certain types of roses that,
Oh,
every rose is going to be a different frequency, but they're all in general higher than most other plants. But
mhm.
yeah, when they discovered how high the frequency was, that I think that kind of, drives the price too. But it is incredibly expensive. Yeah, if you can get a little, usually they only come in little teeny tiny bottles.
Wow.
They don't even let you buy, like I'm looking for a half gallon somewhere, that I can invest in, but they don't let you. And it would be an investment, but
Yeah.
they don't, they sell them in like 2.5 milliliter bottles. So
Yeah.
yeah, I have to be careful because when I make my blends, I kind of have to avoid that one putting it in because I can't afford to keep it on my shelf,
Yeah.
when I need the supply. So yeah, but it's magical. It smells amazing. I've owned one bottle in my life. I think the bottle, I still have the bottle. It's empty, but I don't have the heart to throw it away. So I
Mhm.
just smell it. I just still
Yeah.
smell it every once in a while.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah.
But yeah, it's amazing. It's very high frequency.
Wow. Um, I like sandalwood. That's got such a good smell.
Mm.
So
And
it's
that's a really beautiful, that's another, it can be pricey,
yeah.
but that's another really magical one. Yeah, definitely. That's a
Yeah.
lovely one.
Um, that's interesting. Now you're also an author, editor, and narrator.
Yeah, I've done a little bit of everything.
So
Yeah.
what's the favorite book your favorite book that you've written?
That I've written. Well, I've only written 2. I'm actually working on a couple at the same time right now, including my story, right? My autobiography, which I think is important for a lot of light workers
Mhm.
to get their stories out there. But I have 2 that I was telling you this earlier, that I actually wrote them before really my spiritual awakening. I'd already started an awakening of kind of the state of the world and the truth of the world and the truth of the government and, the existence of the cabal and the deep state and all that, the Illuminati. And but I was not in the spiritual world or the energetic world at all yet. And I wrote kind of both of them in that phase. I don't know why. I don't know, timing, doesn't really mean anything. I don't know in that case, but what they are, and this is kind of the elevator pitch I tell people, what they are is stories about me if I had made different decisions earlier on in my life. So when I was going into the military, I was an officer in the Air Force 25 years ago, when it was not, when it was very uncommon for women to be officers, and it still is very uncommon. And I did it 25 years ago. And so I wanted to be, I'm actually, FYI, if anybody, is thinking about starting something with me, I'm a crack shot. I was an expert marksman in the Air Force. And so I thought about being a cop, and I thought about doing all these amazing things, these things that would give me kind of a really exciting life. Well, then I got pregnant with my first child, and I immediately knew that I didn't want that lifestyle. And so I chose admin. So for a decade, I was a glorified office manager on, various bases around the country. And because I didn't want to be away so much from my kids when I started having kids. And so my first book, which is called Just Kill Me, which is funny how I came to name it that in the first place, but the whole book is about a 40 something, I'm not there anymore, but at the time I was 40 something, mom of boys who decides at 40 that she's going to fulfill her lifelong dream of becoming an FBI agent, which was always what I wanted to do. I was going to be a cop and then retire from the Air Force and go into the FBI. That was what I wanted to do.
Wow.
And I never did any, I never went down that path. And so it's all about this woman who was in the military. It's very much, her past is very much my past. She was in the military, then she got married, started having kids, and, was a very engaged mom, which I always have been, very engaged in my children's lives. And so, so that first one is really just about this woman kind of reclaiming her life, and kind of not dismissing, but, doing away with the labels of mom and wife as being all she is. And so that was kind of and that was a good, every time we write a book, I think any author would agree, every time you write a book, it's therapeutic. It's a therapeutic process. It's like going to therapy, but you're writing a book instead.
Mm-hmm.
And then, so I think that's my favorite because it was my first, I actually wrote a screenplay before that I've never done anything with, that is about a female special forces operative. So, I've always been kind of about the very strong, empowered woman, which from my experience at the time, kind of manifested as a military woman, because that's where I kind of saw the strength in a man's world, right? A strong woman in a man's world. So, which was very much what my life was like.
Wow. Well, thank you for your service.
Oh, thank you. Goodness. Yeah. I don't feel like I did anything, but
Well, really? You don't feel like you did anything?
Well, I did a lot of paperwork. It was a lot of paperwork and what I did is I prepared people's promotion packages. So it was a very gratifying job in that I got a lot of people thanking me and sending me gifts for helping them get promoted, because I would dress up their promotion package and make it look, and make it as good as it could possibly be. And I processed all of that stuff and made sure that the right people got the right things. And so it was a very gratifying job in that respect. It felt small at the time to me, right? It felt like, because I knew I was here to do bigger things. And so for a decade, I kind of felt like I was stuck in this cubicle when I could have been doing more, but it was all for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
It was all for a reason. Absolutely.
Yeah, you got to have your cubicle experience for sure.
Right. And I never deployed to war, which I'm grateful for now. At the time, it was kind of, it's a stigma when you've been in a decade and you've never been. But I have 4 kids. I kept getting pregnant, not intentionally, but I kept, I'd come up on the list and, well, I can't go. So, yeah, it was just one of those things. But there's a reason for that too.
Mm-hmm.
I was definitely not meant to go down that path.
Yeah, well, I think I was lucky. You got lucky. I think you
got absolutely. Absolutely.
Because, yeah.
Yeah, it's not a good situation.
And
that would have been a lot more to heal now, right?
Yes. So is there anything else you want to bring up? Now you're also a vocalist, right?
So I went to school for, my degree is in opera performance, vocal performance in opera. Yeah. Like I said, I'm kind of all over the place. And so I got this degree in opera and then went into the Air Force, and they didn't really know what to do with me with that degree. A lot of times your degree, you can follow that through to a career in the Air Force. And they were like, we don't know what to do with you, which is why I was going to do the cop thing, right? I'm like, well, you can have any degree and go be a cop. But yeah, so I ended up doing admin, which was fine. But yes, I have been singing since I was 5. And I'll tell you, my first memory of that is we had, and this dates me, I'm 50, so I was born in 1970, and my dad was in radio. My whole life he was in radio. He was in sales, he was a DJ for a while. He didn't really like the DJing. He doesn't feel like he's got a good voice for DJing, but he's got a beautiful big personality. And so he was great for the job, and he ended up moving up into management. And so he did radio my whole life. And so we always had the radio on. We were always, and a lot of times, or for the most part, it was country when I was growing up. But I remember hearing my first Dolly Parton song and just being obsessed with Dolly Parton. And we had a record player. If you kids don't know what that is, look it up, Google it. It's worth a Google. We had a record player, and I had a big, what were they, 70, what were the big ones, 78?
78.
78s. I had a big pink record of Dolly Parton's, one song on each side. It was beautiful. And I would listen to those, put the needle down, and I would listen to those songs over and over again, and I would sing along at the top of my lungs. And I remember my mom, and I was 5, and I remember my mom coming in one time and looking at me really weird, and I was like, I thought I was in trouble, right? So I stopped the song, and I was like, I'm sorry. And she goes, I thought there was a woman in here singing. I was like, I'm like, it's just me, Mom, it's just me. And so my mom really encouraged from that moment on. They put me in, I was raised Catholic. I say I'm a recovering Catholic nowadays, but my mom put me in the children's choir right away. And by 7 years old, I was soloing and I was doing all these, and everybody would always be like, oh my gosh, you're so good. And I did the musicals, all through high school. I was in the musicals, and I went to college, and I just could not imagine doing anything but singing. That was just my whole world at the time, singing in theater, that kind of thing. But so I majored in, so I'm a classically trained vocalist. It's been a while. I'm a little out of shape, but yeah, nowadays it's primarily in the shower and in the car, much to my kids' dismay when I break into song. But yeah, it's still a passion of mine. It was still my first passion. And I do kind of feel like I'll get back to that eventually. My dream, honestly, at this point, the only thing I want to do with it is I just would love to be in a band for fun.
Mm-hmm.
That is all. I don't care about making money doing it. I would just love, like, I have a deeper voice, so I can do like Melissa Etheridge. I do Pat Benatar. I do, I was in a couple bands. I was in a band in high school where they made me do Guns N' Roses, and because they didn't want to learn any girl songs. So I sang Welcome to the Jungle. I sang White Snake. What's the children, When the Children Cry, White Snake. That was one of our songs. They wouldn't let me do any, like, I wanted to do Whitney Houston because I was a huge Whitney nerd. But so I sang all of that. And then when my husband was in, and we had our second child, and I was in active reserve at the time in the Air Force, we were in South Korea. And I got to be the singer for they called it the pilot band. It was a bunch of pilots got together and formed a band and played at the bars in the Korean village right outside the base. And I got to be the singer for a short time for that. And that's where I did a lot of Pat Benatar, Melissa Etheridge. Yeah, a lot of that stuff. So I would just love to get back to it just for entertainment.
Yes.
So
Whitney Houston. So you're a big Whitney Houston fan. Did you know?
Oh, she was my girl. I loved her so much.
Her mother was a background singer for Elvis.
I didn't know that.
And there's pictures of her with him. They look pretty cozy.
Oh my gosh. Of her mother or of Whitney?
Her mother.
Well, Whitney would have been little when he passed, I suppose, because she wasn't much older than me, I think. But
well, yeah, he passed in 77.
77, yeah. I was 6. So she was probably a teenager maybe when he passed. I don't know. But yeah, so her mother, pictures.
Some people speculate that she could be related to Elvis.
Oh my goodness. Oh, I see what you're saying. I see where you're going.
Isn't that interesting?
I like that. That is interesting, and I like it.
And he met her later. Maybe at least once or several times. He did meet her backstage, Whitney. Her mother brought her to see Elvis.
Oh my goodness.
Isn't that interesting?
That is really interesting. I always, well, both of them, Elvis and Whitney, such tortured souls, like talk about light workers who could not figure out how to function here, and turned to bad things to be able to do it. But, my heart always goes out to those people who are so in the spotlight with it. And you can just tell that they're just having trouble being here. Mm-hmm. And, now that knowing the things that we know now, we know why, right? Like they were just so magical. being in a physical body was very limiting for them, I'm sure. But yeah, not that would be hereditary, but that makes me think too that there's something to that,
Yeah.
that they were both, it was pretty hard for them to be here. And he was what, 40? She was 50 when she passed, and he was 40.
42.
Oh, he was young. Gosh, I was thinking he was older than that.
1977. Yeah.
I remember seeing it on TV. I was 6, and my parents were like crying, and us kids were like, "What's going on?" Yeah.
I was very upset by it. I got on the bus. I just took the bus all the way into Minneapolis and back home. I was very upset.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah. So now there's some people who think that he's still alive, right? So maybe some of these people might be still alive, but we don't know.
My internet.
Yeah, it's kind of freezing up. I think we better call it a show. I want to thank you, Wendy. Is there anything you want to leave our audience with? Where can they find you? What is your websites for your oils and everything else?
I'm glad we made it through that far. But yeah, I was looking at my notes, and I'm like, yeah, like I just really wanted to, I guess because I feel like I feel like there are not a lot of people who are part of there's this division right now of the people who are in the disclosure world and that information, and then the people who are in their energy world. And I'm in the middle, and kind of speaking to both. And I kind of feel like the group is growing, as I feel like a lot of people who, my awakening was disclosure as well. And it was incredibly terrifying. Right? Like I didn't know what to do with that information. When you find out that medicine is actually bad for you, and that, food is bad for you, and all these things, and that they were letting me poison my children, right? With vaccines and with all this medication that they were making me pump into my precious child. And you part of it, but I do feel like it's coming together more. Did I freeze for you?
Yes, a little bit. Tell our viewers where they can find your essential oils.
Okay, so it's intuitiveoilblends.com, and it actually does also have all of my energy services. I have an energy services page on the site, but the oils are all there. I have a ton of great stock blends, and then the custom blend is in there. And like I said, I've got a whole kids line that's like a 5-pack that you can buy. I've got a beautiful kind of duo. If anybody's looking for Valentine's Day, I've got a beautiful divine duo of Wild Woman and Divine Man that work together very well, that are very good hormone balancers if you care about the 3D aspect of it, but just magical, kind of raise your vibration, connect on that soul level with a romantic partner. That's kind of was the intent behind those. And yeah, I've got a ton out there, but my energy services are there too. I do Akashic readings and healings. I do energy, healing. Although I hate the word healing, right? But well, I shouldn't say hate, but I'm not a healer. I'm a practitioner of healing. And so I help you heal yourself. And I do oracle card readings. I really enjoy doing those. Those are super fun. And yeah, so I'm kind of all over the place, but I'm really enjoying all of it right now. So, and there is contact info on the website of how to contact me.
Excellent.
And I also have a YouTube channel called Parenting Through Ascension. Beautiful. Which I share a lot of advice and my ahas and wisdom that I have. My older two I raised in the 3D, right? And now I've got my younger two that I'm raising in the 5D. And so it's been a very different experience. And so I talk about the transition, and I teach now about how to parent, because every child nowadays, every child coming into the world is a starseed. Every child is magical. Not that every child hasn't been, but they're all right now. They're all coming in, as kind of the volunteers, and so they require a little bit different parenting style. So I teach to that as well.
Well, that's fantastic. Thank you, Wendy, for joining us, and I want to
thank you so much.
Please share and tell all your friends about Truth Quest. Also, her links will be below for her
Yay.
intuitive oil blends and her YouTube channel. Thank you for joining us. This is Aaron Moriarty signing off. Peace in.